Hey everyone, I'm Koen from PhoenixStarYT, and welcome to my commentary track on a few PonyThon videos that I wanted to talk about a little bit more and talk a little bit about the production process of this, because it's been a little while since these videos came out, and I think it would be interesting to every once in a while just look back on these videos, not just the PonyThon, but Koen's Corner in general, and just kind of talk a little bit about the production process of it and my thoughts on these things and all of that stuff. Starting with the first episode of the PonyThon series with this specific opening that I wanted to create. I wanted to go a little bit into the backstory of how I got into the series and all of that, and why I wanted to make this series in the first place, because I figured that would be interesting to do. Turns out, this took up a little bit more time than I think was probably necessary for the final product. I look back on this and I'm like, holy grievous, I'm actually going on about this a little bit too long, aren't I? I can imagine most people probably aren't that interested in in how I got into this series and why I like it as much as I do and what I plan to do with it. So I don't know why I ended up making this introduction as long as it ended up being, but yeah, that's just kind of how it happened, I guess. I kind of wanted to, I had to figure out a good way to open this series up and properly introduce the series, I guess, because the trailer came out well over a year ago by the time that this video came out. So I don't know. In my mind, it felt like a good idea, but in execution, it's just not it, I guess. But yeah, only 2 minutes into the video, and only now did I actually start my my episode analysis, which this video is actually, apart from that introduction, it still holds up relatively well, all things considered, with my thoughts on the show and on these episodes, because I'm talking about 2 episodes in this video, which both tell completely different sides of this story, to completely different things. Like, there's the character introduction, and then there's the battle against Nightmare Moon, which lasts for literally a minute or so before Nightmare Moon gets defeated and all is well and everything. It's clear that this 2-parter was meant to just simply serve as an introduction to all of the main characters, and for that purpose, to be perfectly fair, it serves, it does that very darn well. Like, I'm still recommending these episodes, specifically the first part of this episode, to most people if they ever wanted to get into this series. And I still do recommend just skipping part 2 of this and just go straight into the Ticketmaster immediately after this, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But part of the reason why I still stand by the things that I said about Friendship is Magic Part 2 being extremely problematic. The immersion is lost right from the very beginning because of Nightmare Moon being the source of everything that happens in that place. While in later episodes, the Everfree Forest is said to be almost supernatural in a lot of ways. There's so much going on there. There's so much mystery to it that a lot of ponies in Equestria just are so afraid to go in there because of how much danger there is to be found there. But then you get to this, which is the very first episode of the series, and all of the immersion gets broken because everything that happens there apparently is being caused by one force in particular, which in this episode happens to be Nightmare Moon, and you never know what it could be in later episodes, or you never know if everything that comes up after this will be completely natural, which I always found so incredibly disappointing, especially because I started watching this series around the time when season 2 was premiering, and by that point, the Everfree Forest had already long been introduced, long been established, and a lot of things that happen there have already been found and discovered by the series. And I never once saw whatever the heck was going on in the Everfree Forest before that point. It wasn't until years later that I actually managed to find this episode and watch it and learn about what is actually going on there. And the thing is, to this day, there is still some kind of a mystery to the Everfree Forest, because still, you never know what exactly causes all that is going on in that episode, in that forest, as to where the creatures that live there come from, where all of these supernatural things are coming from, whether there's something mystical, something magical to it, or whatever. We just don't know. And in that sense, there is still a lot of mystery to the Everfree Forest, but I don't know. I just find it very disappointing that the immersion gets completely killed from the very beginning of the series, and I guess I'm still not entirely over that, to be perfectly honest, because it's still something that I keep thinking about to this very day. As I rewatch this episode more and more, specifically part 2, which is part of the reason why I don't really rewatch part 2 all that often, because it's just not something, I don't know, it's something that I just find very particularly disappointing. Other than that, Friendship is Magic Part 1 and Part 2 are very darn good in terms of its entertainment value, in terms of its introducing the characters to the audience and everything. It does all of that incredibly well. It's just that one element in Friendship is Magic Part 2 that I'm personally not that big on. But that, I have to admit, I guess I'm just kind of nitpicking a little bit, because I know that there's a lot of people who do really enjoy Part 1 and Part 2 for what they are and what they're doing. A lot of people probably also still enjoy the Everfree Forest. I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't really talk about the Everfree Forest with a lot of people in the My Little Pony community, so it's hard for me to say whether or not people actually enjoy the mystery that's going on in there. So that is something. But yeah, I will admit that a part of me is probably nitpicking just a little bit about this. Nightmare Moon is herself, by the way, which I don't know if I don't remember ever actually going into too much detail as to who Nightmare Moon is and what I think of her as a villain. She's extremely underutilized in the series, and that's for a darn good reason. That's completely on purpose, because Nightmare Moon was only meant to be a villain in this particular story. I don't know why. I guess I guess Lauren Faust, the creator of Friendship is Magic, just wanted to introduce the characters as epically as humanly possible, so she just ended up creating Nightmare Moon in the process. One problem that I noticed with a lot of Lauren Faust's writing when it comes to villains and whatnot, she doesn't exactly know how to make particularly appealing villains to me. There was Tarek from season 4, who I greatly enjoyed as a villain, but for the most part, she has a lot of trouble writing proper antagonists in general, honestly, because Nightmare Moon was very lackluster this episode. She doesn't really do a whole lot, and most of what she does do is manipulating the Everfree Forest for stuff to happen, like this cliff that we're seeing here, the Manticore, and all of that jazz. Also, the sea monster, which I honestly just consider the most pathetic thing in the entire episode. Like, what the hell, man? You take this ginormous freaking awesome looking sea monster, and it just cries over having lost its mustache. I just cannot with that. I'm sorry. I'm really not a fan of how that entire story was done. And as much as I appreciate Lauren Faust for making the show happen, I do have a lot of problems with her writing in a lot of episodes, especially in season 1. I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly when she left the series. I know that she left at some point. I recall her leaving somewhere around seasons 2 or 3, but I'm not certain about that. A lot of people tell me that she left after season 1, which I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Like, the series has matured extraordinarily after season 1 happened immediately. So, I don't know. I don't really know what the truth is in that, but to be completely honest, it's also not something that I really looked into, because it really doesn't matter too much in the long run. Rather, whether the original creator of a show like this is still going to be around or not, because at the end of the day, it's all up to the directors, the writers, and everything to make this show happen as big as it is. Also, a little side tangent on this. When I was talking about in-depth fantasy, the first thing that I showed was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. That was a massive mistake on my part. I should have probably shown Dragon Pilot, Beastars, or Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender would probably have been the best possible example that I could give. But for some reason, I went with the Goblet of Fire, and that was a massive mistake on my part, because Harry Potter is absolutely notorious for just being kind of all over the dang place and for not making all that much sense at the best of times. So, yeah, big mistake on my part. I deeply apologize for that. I probably should have picked something a little bit better than that. But it was one of the first things that came to mind to me for some reason, because I probably was just very excited after having seen some Harry Potter movies again at that time, because I tend to have some periods a year where I'm just in a big Harry Potter mood and just end up watching at least the first 5 movies of Harry Potter, because I just really love those movies. And I guess I was just in my Harry Potter phase at the time. I don't fully remember, but knowing me, that was probably what happened. And yes, I do focus a little bit too much on the shadow bolts here, because I do think this is probably the best example of these characters really showing their traits and who they are as actual people the best, because it really takes a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't feel forced at all. You can see Dash contemplating one of these 2 options: either stick to her friends or become a member of the Shadow Bolts, meaning that she will never have to see her friends again. Which, obviously, the option, the choice, of course, is very optional. Wow. Okay. It's very obvious to most people, I'm sure, but when you realize that she was a massive fan of the Wonderbolts and it's been her dream practically her whole life to become part of the Wonderbolts and everything, and then the Shadow Bolts come around and then they just offer her this massive opportunity to become part of her team just like that. And Rainbow Dash just rejects it because she also wants to be with her friends. And that is perfectly valid. I'm very happy that that is what happened. Me going on a tangent here. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I went on a few tangents in this video that I probably should not have, and admittedly, I wasn't entirely certain on what to do with this particular part because it all just speaks for itself. The main 6 beats Nightmare Moon with the power of magic, pretty much. with the power of magic, with the magic of friendship, I should say, because that's what it is. And Luna gets reformed. She's back, and she's coming back with Princess Celestia to Canterlot and everything. And that was pretty much all there was to the Friendship is Magic 2-part premiere. I still, like I said, I still stand by what I said about these episodes. I still think they're solid. Are they perfect? No, absolutely not. Friendship is Magic Part 1 came very close to being perfect for me. There were a few things that I personally wasn't that big on, but again, they were mostly just very small nitpicks that I don't even remember mentioning those in this video because they were just so minor. It just wasn't worth it to me to mention those things. And a lot of Friendship is Magic Part 2 that I talked about was just mainly story related and didn't really have anything to do with the characters. I just kind of wish that the characters were being done justice by having a story that was just a lot more compelling and didn't ruin the immersion that I once had for the Everfree Forest, because that immersion that that Friendship is Magic Part 2 and the Everfree Forest now just lack for me is just a really big bummer to me, even to this day. And it's the most non-issue in the world, I guess, but yeah, it really did not do this episode any favors for me personally. Rating system is also a prominent part of the PonyThon because I wanted to incorporate some sort of rating in the PonyThon. I don't really do ratings. I don't give ratings to the things that I talk about in any of my Koen's Corners because that's not what I do. I don't do reviews. I don't really do that kind of thing. I just think it doesn't really make much sense for me to do that. So I would much rather just talk about the subject itself without actually giving it without going into it with a review mindset, which the PonyThon kind of is like that. It does kind of go into a review mindset, but that is 100% not the intention that I really have. I just want to talk about the episodes and their stories and everything and how I feel of them, but I guess that entire concept is just kind of thrown out the window, though, because I do give them ratings at the end of the day. But anyway, what we're seeing here is the first PonyThon video where I show my wolf character. In fact, I'm pretty sure he even premiered with this video, come to think of it. Yeah, he did. The puppet that we're seeing in this video was made by Lightning Bliss, as was the pony puppet that I showed in the first episode. And I kind of fluctuate back and forth between the wolf character and the pony character. I don't know why exactly I went with the wolf for the PonyThon. I guess I was it would have been better if I just stuck with the pony for these videos, but this was around the time when I got the first wolf puppet that I got from Lightning Bliss, and I was just very excited about it. I really wanted to use it in these videos, so I figured it would have made sense for me to use the wolf character in this PonyThon video. Yeah, so a few things about this. I'm not entirely happy on hindsight with how the puppet came out. He's very limiting in terms of what I can and cannot do with him. And the thing is, it's an Adobe Flash puppet, so I would have to go into Adobe Flash to edit certain parts of him that I have absolutely no idea how to work with it. Like, I'm really not good at using Adobe Flash, and I would not have a single clue as to how to properly edit the puppet to be more expressive or to have better arms or better hands or anything like that. I'm not good enough for that, and so I kind of look back on this puppet and be like, I probably should not have paid for this. This puppet was not really worth it at all in at the end of the day. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer for me, but oh well, it's what happens, I guess. It's not really that big of a deal. I don't really use the puppet anymore. One issue though was that it did cost me quite a bit more money than it was probably worth. Anyway, that was pretty much it for the behind the scenes stuff. Let's actually go into the episodes that we're talking about. So, when I was going into these episodes, I was kind of thinking like, what kind of format am I going to use for these videos? What are we going to do? And I ended up going with a roundup sort of format because some of these episodes are just really self-explanatory in a lot of ways. Not necessarily just by looking at the footage, but a lot of these are also just kind of... if I play a few clips of the episode, you will probably get a good idea of what is actually going on. And it wouldn't really make much sense to dedicate a full video, a full 15 or 20-minute video on a single episode. Josh Scorcher does that. Lightning Bliss has done that on a couple of occasions, and a bunch of other brony reviewers have done that. And it's not something that I personally like to do. It's not my kind of format. I would much rather just go into these episodes like this and talk about them for a few minutes, give them my analysis about what I think about them, and mainly, what I also like to do in these videos is focus on one topic in particular that gets discussed and just talk about that one topic or that one element that I find really interesting to talk about and that I think, contributes a whole lot in the episode's quality, because that is, at the end of the day, what I think is the most interesting to talk about, not the teeniest bits of the story of the episodes that happen, not the memes or anything like that. Just talk about that particular element that's the most prominent in the entire series, that takes most of the runtime. In this case, it was, of course, Applejack's amazing burnout that I still think is absolutely amazing to see develop. Makes for some very funny scenarios that I personally really enjoy. She is very stubborn in the episode, which makes it a little bit frustrating for sure, but still, I definitely really enjoy that episode for what it is, and it does what it needs to do, and that is to just simply be entertaining and have Applejack learn a thing or two about not burning yourself out because your brother is injured or whatever. Like, I just like it. Anyway, Griffin the Brush Off was an episode that I was definitely very mixed on, and still am very mixed on. It has a lot of good parts, a lot of bad parts, a lot of parts that I cringe at, a lot of parts that I laugh at, especially at the last few minutes of it. But above all else, I just find it extremely frustrating, mostly because Gilda is just such a big jerk, and it's something that I never really got over. Like, she's a jerk in this episode, and she will continue to be a jerk in future episodes that she's featured in. And I know she does get better by the end of the next episode that she appears in, but I mean, it still doesn't really save what was already a pretty dang mediocre character at best. I just really do not enjoy Gilda and all that she does. A few nice things about this episode, though, was Pinky and Rainbow Dash just pranking every pony, having a lot of fun together. Even though they aren't exactly a good fit for each other in the very beginning of it. Rainbow Dash definitely doesn't seem to like Pinky very much at the beginning of it. But then they start pranking everybody, and then they just start having fun and everything, and it's just really, really nice. I really like that the character development on this show is always just a really wonderful thing to see. Also, this is probably my least favorite moment in the entire episode. Just how I just don't understand. Out of all the characters that you could possibly pick to put into that scenario, why would you pick Fluttershy? Like, oh, that just hurts. But yeah, that was just a minor complaint. But yeah. Um, Rainbow Dash and Pinky pranking every pony was genuinely a very nice thing, and I enjoyed every single second of that. It was really the moment that Gilda starts getting into the scene is the part where the episode just starts going downhill for me. Also, a small sneer to Babseed, who doesn't appear in this or in the next season. She only appears in future seasons, like season 3 she appears in. I believe she even appears once in the entire series, and after that she disappears for most certainly forever. She doesn't come back ever again after that one instance, and I just find that so funny. It's almost like the writers learned from the mistakes that they made and decided, yeah, we're not bringing her back anymore. Gilda did come back, however, which is just, yeah. Again, I just could not get into Gilda's characterization in this. But I do absolutely adore Pinky just giving her absolute revenge to Gilda, like in the only way that Pinkie Pie can as well, which is of course pranks everywhere. Every single corner that Gilda is in, there is some sort of prank setup, and it is amazing. I absolutely love that she did that, and I would have honestly loved for more prank episodes of Rainbow Dash and Pinky. I know that they did do a prank episode a little bit later, which is, of course, I think it was 28 pranks later, something like that. It was a really nice episode. I love that. Mostly because Rainbow Dash just goes way too far in that one and gets her comeuppance. And I'm talking about all of this because Ghostbusters is just so incredibly not interesting for me to talk about, and I just wanted to talk about something else. And Ghostbusters is one of those episodes that I personally just refuse to acknowledge exists, and the reason for that is really twofold. One, the main six act like complete and total jackasses the whole way, and are just hypocrites the whole way through, and just really awful all throughout, but especially because it's the introduction to the worst character in the entire series, Trixie, who I hate with my very core. She's manipulative, she lies to everyone, she uses ponies like slaves. She has a massive history of just harassing and abusing ponies, just like that right there. Like, you have Applejack just tied up like that. Like, yeah, Dash and AJ were acting like assholes towards her, and she was they were pretty much being ginormous hypocrites towards Trixie, but like, that doesn't give you the excuse to torture AJ and Dash and Rarity the way that you did Trixie. I don't care what anyone says about that. That is just not acceptable behavior under any circumstances. And also, this just infuriates me all the time. Like, every single time I see that Ursa Minor pop up, and every single time Snips and Snails wake it up, I'm just like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? What were you thinking with this? Like, it's just... yeah, it really does frustrate me that it happened like this. And the only thing that I liked about this was the amazing animation that we saw there with Twilight doing her absolutely amazing spell and saving every pony from the Ursa Minor with milk and a song and everything. That was the only part to it that I actually liked, but it really was not enough whatsoever to save this entire episode. It's a shame that, like, it's one of the first scenes, in my opinion, in the entire series that has some absolutely brilliant animation, and then, um, uh, like, for it to be in this episode just hurts. Um, and yeah, again, Trixie is just the worst. And she doesn't really change much from this either. She continues to be manipulative. She continues to be arrogant and selfish in literally every single episodes that she appears in after this. And like, if it was just one episode that she appears in, I would be like, okay, fine, I can live with this episode existing. I'm still not happy with it, but I mean, I would have been okay with it existing if this was the only episode that she ever appeared in. But that unfortunately didn't happen to be the case, and for that reason, I just really despise this episode more, because of that. Because this was the episode where all of that garbage started. So yeah, that was all of that. All in all, this season was not exactly off to a start that I was personally expecting. It had some goods in there. It had some highs, it had some lows, but all in all, not exactly the greatest start to a season here, if you ask me at least. I did really enjoy looking back on all of this. I would like to talk about some of this a little bit more, but looks like this is the end of it all. You know what? You know what I'll do? I'll actually get another video of this. Hang on. And here we are in the next part of our commentary. This is exciting stuff. Oh my god, the South Park clip there. Yeah, I just really wanted to put that clip there. Oh yeah, this is where I started using the title cards, I see. Really exciting. So this is where the production value for the PonyThon started to go up a little bit. I wanted to use more transitions. I wanted to use more assets, more stuff to make it look and sound a little bit more interesting, I guess. So I used a lot of custom transitions that I managed to find online, and I have been using them ever since in a bunch of my videos, and it's really great. I know that some people have told me that they found the transitions that I often use a little bit too distracting, and that they often give them headaches. But I don't know. I think it adds a little bit to the style of these videos, and I think it makes the video a little bit cleaner, I guess. I think it makes the transitions not quite as jarring whenever they happen. They're not just random cuts that happen in between different shots with my character standing in front of you and talking to you, and just having clips of the episode playing. I think it's a lot better this way, honestly. I know there's people who don't like it, but I like it, so it's the format that I'm using, and it's the format that I'm gonna be using for as long as I need to. So yeah, there's that. And what's also cool about these episodes is that the edits were also starting to become a little bit more elaborate in general. I started using more assets, more images, more general things. I know that I already started doing that in the Friendship is Magic two-parter video, but this video in particular was the one where I started to up the game a little bit with my production value and add a lot more elements to it that I figured would be nice to have in there, so that the video is a little bit more interesting to look at, rather than just having clips and having my character standing on the screen and everything. I also liked things to move a little bit, so that's why I decided to add a little bit more keyframing, and why I added the transitions that I ended up adding. So yeah, this is where all of that started, and I'm very happy with the way that it's turned out. For that reason, I think this edit looks pretty darn slick as a result. It's definitely not the best I can do. I can definitely do a lot better than what we're seeing here, but you got to keep in mind this is one of the I don't want to say old, but This edit is pretty old at this point. My editing style has evolved quite a bit since that video, so that's a little something that happened over the years. Um, anyway, Dragon Shy itself is an episode that I personally consider the weakest of the Fluttershy episodes. And I know this is only the beginning. It's only the start of her character development. She's still like Friends with Magic Part 1 had her just being so shy that she can barely even introduce herself at all. And that's she did grow beyond that after that, but she still talks very, very quietly at the best of times. She doesn't really have a lot of confidence in herself and in what she's capable of and everything. It isn't until her friends get attacked by the dragon that she finally decides, okay, I'm gonna stand up for my friends and for myself and really show what who I am and all of that. So, but until then, it's Fluttershy pretty much slowing the entire episode down, and also the title cards with the ratings on there. I thought that was a pretty slick idea, by the way. Those were a last minute addition, but yeah, Fluttershy's character Dragonshy really left a lot to be desired, and I'm honestly very happy that she grew past that in later episodes of the series. So, and yeah, we're seeing here a reference that I gave to South Park here once again. This exact same clip that I also posted as a shit post on the PhoenixStarYT channel, because I just think it is so incredibly funny in so many ways. Like, it's exactly how I feel while watching this episode, because Look Before You Sleep is just I've seen a few people actually call this the worst episode of the whole show. I don't think this is necessarily the worst. There's definitely much worse out there, but it is the most annoying, probably. The reason why it's the most annoying is well, it's right in front of you right here. It's just constant fighting over literally nothing at all. And that is just incredibly frustrating to see. I get that this is probably supposed to be more annoying for Applejack and Rarity than it is supposed to be annoying for the viewer, but the problem is you're making a massive risk when you're writing your episode like that, because it can go either very well or very, very wrong. And this is one of those cases where it went very wrong in the end. It did end off on a very nice note. I'll give it that. I did crack a smile at this moment right here. A little bit of slapstick in there that did save it from being absolute garbage. And I guess you could also make the case that Twilight's enthusiasm was relatively nice to look at. I do have a soft spot for enthusiastic characters like this. So, that's one thing, I guess. This is Princess the Twilight Sparkle just being very enthusiastic about a slumber party for the very first time, because this was our first slumber party as well. Bridal Gossip, the episode that everyone mentioned, that thing with Twilight's horn at this point that I deliberately did not mention, because again, I don't care for memes in these videos. I just would much rather get straight to the point, talk about the story, and talk about the elements that is the most prominent in these episodes. And in this episode, it was obviously Poison Joke and the comedy that came out of the Poison Joke, because there are just so many wacky shenanigans going on in this episode because of the Poison Joke. And it just makes me laugh every single time I see it. It's absolutely amazing. And also, Apple Bloom, dearie, you're amazing, but be very careful when you approach strangers the way that you do, especially when people consider them controversial at best and straight up dangerous at worst. Because you're not gonna have a good time if you just so happen to run into the wrong kind of person. it's highly dangerous. But yeah, that was a little side tangent, and here I go on and on and on and on and on about Poison Joke, because Poison Joke was just so funny to me. And this was one of those episodes where, I know a few people who personally don't care much for this episode because of how judgmental the main six were of Zecora, even though they don't even know her. Like, they are explicitly judging Zecora over the sole fact that she's different from everyone else. And I get that. I definitely do not fault anyone for criticizing her for that reason, or this episode for that reason. Like, I have absolutely nothing to argue against with that. It's perfectly fair, but personally, it doesn't really bother me that much because they do get what's coming to them in the end. Like, they get exactly what they deserve. Every single one of them, for being just nothing more, nothing less, but such a massive jerk against Zecora. They all get what they deserve in the form of the most hilarious modifications to themselves that I've ever seen. Like, Twilight being totally unable to use her magic, Flutter Guy, Rowdy's mane, and Pinky's tongue and everything. I just freaking love it. It makes for a lot of hilarious moments. And of course, there's Rainbow Dash with all of the slapstick. I just really enjoy slapstick. I don't know. It's just something that really makes me laugh every single time when I see something slapstick related. Yeah, I let the text scroll by a little bit fast here, and that is because there's just so much. There's so many episodes that that I personally would consider okay. And some episodes that are just problematic. And some episodes, again, I'm just very conflicted by. Like, the thing that I struggled the most with Storm of the Century was the fact that it has such an amazing idea. It has so much potential. There are so many things that they could have done so well with it. But the biggest misstep for me was that the story just felt so forced, and Fluttershy felt so stupefied. Like, oh my gosh, what have they done to you? Like, Fluttershy was never, she was shy, sure, and she has a love for animals, but she was never this incredibly stupid. Even in the early seasons, you could argue she's not this stupid. She should not be. She should know better than what she's doing here. Like, yeah, the Parasprites are adorable as hell, but they're also extremely dangerous, as we're seeing here. Also, a little side tangent. I wonder, what do the Parasprites eat in the Everfree? Because they came from the Everfree Forest. What do they eat there? And how much does it actually take for them to multiply until the entirety of Equestria is just covered with them? And how did that one Parasprite get out in the first place? Actually, you know what? Scrap that last question. Pretend I didn't ask that one. Because it's obvious. The Parasprites just flew out of there. A lot of people have complaints about Pinkie Pie this episode. I personally love Pinkie's writing in this episode. I think she's funny. And I think it makes a lot of sense too. Because, like, I don't understand why someone would actually want for Pinkie to reveal early what she is hoping to do with all of the instruments that she's collecting. Like, I think it's a lot funnier to just let it happen. Let Pinkie Pie just be her Pinkie Pie self and be wacky, be weird, act all weird about the whole situation, and then let her reveal that she's taking away all of the Parasprites by just playing all of these crazy instruments as a one-man band, pretty much, or a one-pony band, if you will, and just let the Parasprites follow her in a giant parade of sorts. I think that's so much funnier than if they were to just have Pinkie tell you what she's gonna be doing with these instruments. I guess you could have also made it into a scavenging hunt, but again, I think that would have been far less interesting. Like the payoff that that they ended up going for in the end with Pinky here is just so much funnier to me personally. So, but yeah, this episode is mostly just kind of it's not really the worst episode. Like it has a lot of great moments in it. I just wish that the plot, in terms of Fluttershy's characterization, Fluttershy's writing, whatever you want to call it, wasn't so incredibly stupid. Because the execution of this episode, in a lot of ways, is brilliant, but also really bad. Also, Twilight, I don't know what the hell you were thinking with that one spell. I don't know. I don't remember if I actually mentioned this in the video, but yeah, Twilight should have predicted that her spell would not have worked in the least. Like, that would have backfired all the time. That would have backfired every single time she would have tried that. So, yeah. And also, those pair of sprites that that are being escorted away, they are probably never turned back to normal. And we never know what happens to the rest of Equestria after this. So, yeah, well done, Twilight. You probably doomed Equestria forever. Equestria's probably gonna be dead in a few hundred years. So, very well done. You did a brilliant job there. Yeah, just an episode that just felt incredibly cursed and very forced, and I'm not a big fan of it personally because of that reason. Which is again just a big shame because it could have been absolutely brilliant in every single sense of the word. Anyway, yeah, this was a lot of fun to look back on, guys. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did too. If you did, a like would be highly appreciated, and yeah, more awesome videos are coming up very soon, and I'll talk to you all later.